You have $1.5 million cash. In Portugal, that's a vineyard estate with ocean views. In Tokyo, a 4-bedroom house 12 minutes from Shibuya with a garden and a bathroom that has more buttons than a spaceship. In Toronto, a semi-detached teardown. Basement smells like someone's dreams died there. Backyard the size of a yoga mat. 73% chance the previous owner was a raccoon. This isn't a housing market, this is a hostage situation with granite countertops. But here's the number that turns this from a joke into a nightmare, 14%. That's how much of Canada's entire GDP comes from real estate. Not tech, not oil, not manufacturing, houses. Canada didn't stumble into expensive housing. Canada built its entire economy on the bet that your house will be worth more next year than it is today. Forever. If that bet fails, the country breaks. If it doesn't fail, an entire generation never owns anything. Today, the 7 mechanisms of the trap, and the 3 ways this ends. None of them are good. Let's go. Meet Kevin. Kevin is a loan officer at a major Canadian bank. Nice guy. Coaches his kids' hockey team, goes to church on Easter. Last Tuesday, a young couple sat across from his desk. Both teachers, combined income $140,000. They want a $950,000 mortgage. Kevin runs the numbers. It's tight. Really tight. 1 job loss, 1 interest rate hike, and they're underwater. Kevin's mouse hovers over decline. But Kevin's bonus depends on writing mortgages. His manager is watching the metrics. The couple is desperate. They've been outbid on 6 houses already. The wife is crying. Kevin clicks. Approve. Kevin isn't evil. Kevin is responding to incentives, and the incentives have created a monster. Here's the context. Real estate makes up roughly 14% of Canada's GDP. In the US, it's 6%. Germany, 5%. Japan, a country that learned what happens when housing becomes the economy back in 1991, 4%. Canada isn't building houses. Canada is building an economy on the idea of houses getting more expensive. And this is why the government can never let prices fall. A 30% correction wouldn't just hurt homeowners, it would crash consumer spending, it would blow up bank balance sheets, it would trigger a recession that makes 2008 look like a warm-up act. So every policy, every interest rate decision, every immigration target gets filtered through one unspoken question. Will this hurt housing prices? If yes, doesn't happen. Now let me show you how this addiction works at the family level. Meet Linda and Bob. They bought their house in Oakville in 2003 for $340,000. Just wanted somewhere to raise the kids. Nothing fancy. Today, Zillow says it's worth $1.6 million. They didn't do anything. Didn't build a company. Didn't invent a product. They just existed in a house. And the house made them millionaires. Now Linda and Bob feel rich. This is the wealth effect, economic cocaine. Their salary didn't increase, but they look at that Zillow number and think, new kitchen, trip to Portugal, help the kids with their down payments. Problem. The $1.2 million gain is trapped in the walls. How do they spend it? Enter the HELOC, home equity line of credit. Think of it as a financial IV drip connected directly to your home. As prices rise, the bank lets you tap that phantom wealth. New kitchen, tap. Vacation, tap. Help the kids, tap, tap, tap. In 2023, Canadians held $170 billion flowing through that IV. The problem? It's not blood, it's borrowed time. If prices ever drop, the IV runs dry, and you're left with the debt, but not the wealth. Canada hasn't built an economy that includes housing. Canada has built a housing market that happens to include an economy. And to keep this machine running, they need a constant supply of new buyers. If the housing addiction is the disease, immigration policy is the guy who showed up with a gasoline tanker and said, "I heard there was a small fire?" One line on this is not anti-immigration, it's anti-math denial. The Canadian immigration system is brilliant on paper, points-based, skills-focused, the envy of the world. The problem is simple. You can't invite 1 million people to a dinner party and realize you forgot to set up chairs. In 2023, Canada added 1.2 million people, built 240,000 homes. That's like adding a city the size of Munich and building housing for half of it. Where does everyone else go? They compete. They stack 4 to a room. They bid against each other, driving up rents, making the problem worse with every new arrival. Let me show you what this looks like at human scale. Meet Priya. Priya is 29. Master's degree in mechanical engineering from Mumbai. Scored in the top percentile on Canada's point system. Exactly the kind of skilled worker Canada says it desperately needs. She arrives in Toronto with $15,000 in savings and dreams of building a career. Reality check. A 1-bedroom apartment costs $2,500 a month. That's $30,000 a year just to exist. Entry-level engineering jobs pay $55,000. After taxes, $42,000 take-home. Subtract rent, she's got $12,000 for food, transport, and oh wait, there's nothing left. So Canada imports a mechanical engineer and immediately prices her out of being an engineer. Priya can't take an entry-level position that would build her career, can't afford to be an intern, so she drives Uber, delivers food, works 3 gig jobs while her engineering degree collects dust. That's not integration, that's talent destruction. Last month, Priya's mother called from Mumbai. Beta, when are you buying a house? When are you settling down? Priya didn't know how to explain that the Canada in the brochure doesn't exist anymore, that she's 29, has a master's degree, and her retirement plan is, maybe things will get better. She told her mum everything was fine. Then she hung up and cried in her $2,500 apartment that she shares with 2 strangers. Multiply Priya by 500,000 and the government knows this math, but they can't stop. Those 1.2 million people aren't just residents, they're customers. They pay rent, they buy furniture, they prop up GDP. Without immigration, Canada's population would start shrinking. The pensions, the healthcare, the real estate values, it all depends on a constant flow of new arrivals to hold the pyramid up. This is the population Ponzi. It looks like growth, it feels like prosperity, but you're borrowing it from people who just got off the plane and haven't realized yet that the game is rigged. And once you see why politicians can't touch this, you'll realize the system isn't broken. It's locked. Quick break. Because the next section is where housing crisis becomes political impossibility. If you want the real mechanics, not the polite version, subscribe and drop a comment, staying and fighting or planning your exit. Now here's why no politician can actually fix this. Here's the question that haunts every Canadian politician in the shower. What happens if housing actually becomes affordable? Sounds like a goal, it's actually political suicide. Let's do the math. There are roughly 10 million homeowner households in Canada. 10 million families whose net worth is tied directly to housing prices going up. Against them, maybe 4 million renter households. Younger, more mobile, lower voter turnout. A politician who crashes housing prices is a politician who destroys the net worth of 10 million households. Their career ends. Their party loses 3 elections. So what do they do instead? They pretend. Let me show you how this plays out. Last year, Toronto proposed a 4-plex development in a neighborhood called the Annex. 4 families could live where one lives now. Standard density increase. The existing homeowners showed up to the council meeting in force. One woman, let's call her Margaret, stood at the microphone and said with a straight face, "This will destroy the character of our neighborhood." Margaret's house is worth $2.3 million. She bought it for $180,000 in 1987. Margaret isn't protecting character. Margaret is protecting her retirement fund. And Margaret votes in every election without fail. The 4-plex was denied. This plays out in 1,000 council chambers across Canada every week. Homeowners protecting their equity by blocking supply. Politicians afraid to override them. The Canadian government is a man standing on a landmine. Step forward, explosion. Step backward, explosion. So he stands perfectly still, announcing bold new initiatives while going absolutely nowhere. And while everyone was playing this frozen game, something else was dying quietly in the background. Here's the quiet catastrophe. While everyone got rich on paper, Canada stopped building the future. Business investment in machinery, equipment, and intellectual property has flatlined. Not because Canadians are lazy, because capital is chasing the only guaranteed return: housing. Meet Dave. Dave has $5 million from selling his business. He's looking at two options. Option A, invest in a tech startup, high risk, 7 years to maybe see returns, might fail completely, but creates jobs, generates innovation, builds something real. Option B, buy 5 condos, government has made it clear prices can't fall. Rent them out. Watch them appreciate. Guaranteed. Dave buys the condos. Dave isn't stupid. Dave is rational. Multiply Dave by thousands of wealthy Canadians, and you get a country that stopped investing in itself. Now meet Carlos. 10 years ago, Carlos was an idealist. He wanted to build affordable housing in Toronto, had the money, the land, the plan. The city said, wait. 3 years for permits, 2 more years for appeals from neighbours who didn't want those people nearby. By the time he got approval, costs had jumped 40%. He built the units anyway, had to charge market rate just to break even. Last year, Carlos gave up, sold his land to a luxury condo developer. Now he builds warehouses in Ohio. At least in Ohio, he told me, they actually want things to get built. The result shows up in the numbers. Canadian labour productivity, value produced per hour, has actually declined relative to the United States. The gap is the widest since the 1980s. This shows up in wages. This shows up in brain drain. A software engineer in Toronto makes 130,000 Canadian dollars. Sounds great until $24,000 goes to taxes and $36,000 goes to rent. Same engineer gets on a plane to Seattle, $280,000 US. Twice the disposable income. Half the stress. You know what Canada's biggest export used to be? Lumber, oil, wheat. You know what it is now? 28-year-olds with computer science degrees and a one-way ticket to Austin. We're not building an economy. We're running a talent pipeline for Silicon Valley, and we're not even charging admission. So the obvious question is, why not just build more houses if only it were that simple? Why can't Canada just build more houses? 3 reasons. Zoning blocks it, approvals delay it, and construction productivity is actually falling. That's the whole paradox, so let me show you each one. First, the yellow belt. In Toronto, 70% of residential land is zoned for single-family homes only. No duplexes, no townhouses, no apartments, just one house, one lot, forever. This is a legal force field around wealth. Even if a developer wanted to build affordable housing, they can't. The land is legally restricted to expensive single-family homes. Second, the approval process. Getting permission to build a 200-unit building takes 3 to 5 years. Just permits, just approvals. Every day of delay costs money. By the time you break ground, costs have increased 30 to 40%. Guess who pays for that delay? The eventual buyer. Third, and this is the one that broke my brain, Canadian construction productivity is getting worse. Since 1990, construction productivity has declined by nearly 20%. In every other industry, workers produce more each year as technology improves. In Canadian construction, they produce less per hour than when the Soviet Union existed. Why? There's no market pressure to improve. When housing prices rise 10% every year, who cares if your costs rise 8%? The buyer absorbs it. The market bails you out. The housing crisis has created a construction industry with no incentive to solve the housing crisis. And the result isn't just high prices. It's a country splitting into two species. Meet two Canadians, David, born 1965, bought a house in Vancouver in 1995 for $280,000. Normal job, normal life. Today, that house is worth $2.1 million. David didn't do anything special, he just existed at the right time. He's a millionaire because of his birth year. Emma, born 1995. David's daughter, master's degree, makes $75,000. More than David made at her age, even adjusted for inflation. Emma cannot afford a house. Not in Vancouver, not in Toronto, not anywhere near her job. The median home in her city costs 12 times the median income. In a healthy market, that ratio is 3 to 4. She would need to save 100% of her income for a decade to afford a down payment. Emma is doing everything society asked: degree, job, savings. And the reward is, wait, this isn't a housing market, it's a caste system based on birth year. And here's the part nobody wants to say out loud. Emma doesn't actually want prices to crash anymore, because if they crash, her parents lose their retirement. And Emma loves her parents. So Emma is trapped in an impossible calculus: hope for a crash that destroys her family's wealth, or hope prices stay high and accept she'll never own a home. There's no version where Emma wins without someone she loves losing. That's not a market. That's a hostage situation. And the hostage and the hostage taker are in the same family. Birth rates are crashing. Young Canadians can't afford space for children. Marriage rates are falling. The entire concept of building your own wealth has been replaced by waiting for inheritance. And the people who should be demanding change, they're on planes to Austin and Seattle and Dublin. The rage dissipates across borders. The system survives because its victims keep leaving. So how does this end? There are 3 scenarios. I'll give them to you straight. Scenario 1, the soft landing. This is the dream. Prices plateau, incomes rise, construction accelerates, everyone keeps face, nobody riots. Sounds perfect. It requires a decade with no recession, no global shock, no political backlash. It requires Earth to stop being Earth. Probability? Low. Scenario 2, the Japan model. Prices peak and stagnate for a generation. Housing becomes dead money. Doesn't crash spectacularly, just stops growing forever. Linda and Bob's house stays at $1.6 million for 20 years. They're not wiped out, but their retirement plan doesn't work anymore. Canada doesn't collapse. It just stops mattering. A slow fade into irrelevance while the world moves on. Scenario 3. The hard landing. Something breaks. Recession hits. A bank wobbles. Confidence cracks. Prices fall 30 to 40% in 18 months. Millions of households underwater. Banking system needs a bailout bigger than anything Canada has ever seen. Consumer spending collapses, unemployment spikes. 2008 Canadian edition. Except Canada is more leveraged than America was when America collapsed. Here's the brutal truth. All 3 scenarios end the same way for Emma's generation. Soft landing, wait decades. Japan model, inherit a stagnant country. Hard landing, live through a depression. There is no version where the people who got locked out get made whole. The damage is done. The question is only how it gets distributed. So here we are. Canada, second largest country by land mass on Earth. More land per person than almost anywhere. Some of the best educated people in the world. And shelter became unaffordable. It happened because at every decision point, Canadians chose home values over the country's future, short-term wealth effects over long-term productivity, rising equity over building an economy that makes things. The house always wins. But here's the thing about rigged games. You can refuse to play, you can rent without shame, you can move to a city that actually wants you. You can vote for politicians who don't own 6 investment properties. You can stop measuring your worth by whether you own four walls. The system survives by default. It only changes by force, votes, zoning reform, and building. The house wins when you believe you have no choice. You have choices, they're just not the choices you were promised. The question is whether you're brave enough to make them. Go to the comments right now. Which of the three scenarios happens? Soft landing, Japan stagnation, hard crash? I want to see the percentage breakdown. Vote. If this was valuable, subscribe. We dissect economies every week. The real version, not the textbook version. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.